Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we are continuing from where we left yesterday in that Bhakti Sandarbha lecture.
Score it. Jiva Goswami tells another story. You want to hear another story?
Is the audio clear to you all?
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you.
We go another story. The story is the story of King Shatadhanu, who doesn't say what he's the king of, but he had a queen. Her name is Shaivya. Shaivya. So the two, king and queen, were Vaishnavas, and they wanted to observe Kartik Vrata. Yeah. So one of the procedures in Kartik Vrata was to go to a sacred place and bathe in the Ganges, and there was a certain vrata that you wouldn't speak. You just, there's certain vows, what you wouldn't eat, what you wouldn't speak, what you would do, what you wouldn't do. So they were doing all the do's and avoiding the don'ts, except when they went to the bank of the Ganges, the king saw a friend of his martial arts teacher. This is Vishnu Purana. And he, out of respect for his martial arts teacher, he started having a conversation with his friend. And it turned out his friend was a dacoit. It was like, a low-class man. And the wife was not going to say anything because you're not supposed to say something during this vrata. But she kind of did her hand motions and he just kept going on. So according to Vishnu Purana, she looked at the sun and offered prayers to the sun god to forgive her for the sin. And then they went after their bath, they went back to the palace and until the end of their life, and the king died first. And the queen entered into the funeral pyre of the king. Vishnu Purana says, in his next life, he became a dog. Because he spoke to a low-class person when he wasn't supposed to speak at the side of a sacred river, and he made an offense performing the Kartik Vrata. It's not don't perform Kartik Vrata, but that was the consequence according to Vishnu Purana. And the queen, when she took her next birth, she took birth as the daughter of the king of Kashi. The narration goes, when she became of marriageable age, her father wanted her to marry a prince from another kingdom. But she didn't want to marry this prince from another kingdom. So she didn't marry. And she went into a distant place, engaged in deep meditation, and she then was able to remember her previous life and what had happened, how she became what she became. And she also was able to divine or discern what happened to her husband. And she realized in her meditation that her husband had become a dog. And so she sought the dog. She found the dog, Vishnu Purana said, and she took the dog into a private place and told the dog, do you know how you became a dog? We were husband and wife in our previous life, and you did this and you did that, and he was so distressed. He had this realization of what a foolish person he was to not follow the proper vratas for Kartik Vrata. And so he went to a mountainside and jumped off the mountain and died. The dog died. In his next life, became a jackal. And then the same procedure. She did her meditation. She realized her new husband, or husband had become now a jackal, and she found the jackal and told the jackal, and the whole cycle. Then a wolf, and then a vulture, then a crow, then a crane, then a peacock. And each time she did the same. So apparently that, animals are born more quickly because she's still a princess. She's not married yet. And she each time would tell this creature who he was in his previous life, and he died and so forth. Then finally, when he became peacock, this is how the story ends from Vishnu Purana. King Janak performed an Ashvamedha Yagya. At the conclusion of the Yagya, the king took the ritual bath and also sprinkled some of the sanctified water on the peacock. And the result, the peacock in his next birth became the son of King of Janak. Doesn't say what his name was. When he had grown to become a young man, princess was still unmarried, and they married. At the end of life, they attained Vaikuntha. Lived happily ever after. Nice story, huh? Jiva Goswami, Vishnu Purana. And he's telling both of these histories, King Riga and King Shatadhanu, to illustrate what happens if there's offense. Even one who is a performer of bhakti. And there's the different kinds of offenses, but offense. The principle is offense. And then he goes into a very nice thing that takes another 6 Anucheds to describe. There are signs how you can tell somebody in their previous life they've made an offense because they show symptoms in this life. And he lists 5 items and spends the rest of those Anucheds describing them. And the first one is the opposite of straightforwardness or crookedness. Kautilyam. And then Anuched after Anuched after Anuched gives examples of each of these. So the first 2, Kautilyam, crookedness. Then lack of faith. First crooked, then faith wanes or becomes less. Then absorption in things that detract one from faith in Bhagavan. And then, number 4, slackening of bhakti. Sound familiar? Laxity? Slackening of bhakti? Sound familiar? So he's indicating from Anuched 141, laxity prevents one from becoming accomplished in rati or bhava bhakti. But where's that laxity come from? For any one of us, if there's intermittent, we were using these terms this morning, if there's intermittent enthusiasm and waning of enthusiasm, or enthusiastic devotional service and slackening of that devotional service, it has behind it some aparad. It's an outcome. Or take it the other way. If there's offenselessness, then there isn't going to be slackening. So beware of offenses. And then the final one is pride. So we're going to go through each one, starting with these 2 contrasting qualities, starting with crookedness. That's the opposite of simplicity. We value simplicity. It is a valuable quality for a devotee. Being simple, not dull, or not that kind of simple, but simple, as opposed to crooked, or straightforward, as opposed to not being straightforward. Here's in a reference that he makes on this point of Kautilyam, Parashar Muni in Skanda Purana says, impure fools who are crooked do not develop bhakti, chanting, or remembering of Govinda.
Bibi.
Bhaktir bhavati govinde kirtanam smaranam. Those don't develop when there's crookedness. And in Anuched 153, he Jiva Goswami gives the following example from Mahabharata. There's a painting, very beautiful painting. There's Krishna in the royal assembly in Hastinapur. There's a light shining on Duryodhana. And this section is describing, Mahabharata is describing, Krishna came as a peace messenger. No, where Krishna came from wasn't Dwarka. Krishna was visiting in what's the palace? Not Hastinapur. Indraprastha, thank you. Thank you. So Krishna was visiting the Pandavas in Indraprastha. And, the Pandavas didn't want battle. They wanted a peaceful solution. In particular Yudhishthira, but others wanted a peaceful solution. So they decided, let's ask Krishna to go as a peace messenger. So Krishna went as a peace messenger. And it was known in Hastinapur, Krishna's coming as a peace messenger. So what did Duryodhana do? He made this grand reception and decorated the city and festoons and blah, 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 blah. Really decked it out. And he wanted to appeal to Krishna's finer sentiments, flattering him. Like, that's going to win Krishna, right? So the scene is, Duryodhana had planned a big feast, and he requested, because Krishna had just arrived and received, in an appropriate manner and so forth, and given a nice seat, and he publicly made this request: please have lunch at my home, my palace. And Krishna replied, this is what's the reference here, 2 reasons. Well, there's 2 reasons why somebody would eat. One is if they're hungry. And I'm not hungry. And another reason is, even if you're not hungry, if someone is offering an invitation with love, then you may accept the invitation because it's offered with love. But in your case, there's no love. Although you've made this big, fancy arrangement, it's manipulative only. It's crooked. Because you despise the Pandavas, and I love the Pandavas. You don't love me because you despise the Pandavas. So the answer is no. I'm not hungry, and there's no love. But I'll go where there is love, even though I'm not hungry. So where did he go? Yeah. And you know what happened when he went to his home. His wife gave him banana peels. Because, anyway, there's details and details. So, crookedness of Duryodhana is an indicator Jiva Goswami is pointing because of offense. Now, you offend the Pandavas, you're offending Krishna. You offend the pure devotee, you offend those who are dear to Krishna, you're offending Krishna. So he's an offender, from way back, but he's an offender. And then, consequently, sequentially, there's a lack of faith. So, crookedness, lack of faith. And Jiva Goswami points to the same scene. So that the next day, after he had arrived, there's this assembly in the assembly hall in Hastinapur. And Krishna comes as a peace messenger. And he publicly advised in Duryodhana's presence to ask Duryodhana, your son, you're the king, or because you're blind, he's acting as the king, ask him to give the kingdom back to the Pandavas, because religiously and rightfully, they're the heir of the throne. And publicly, Dhritarashtra said, I can't do that, because he's too stubborn. He's obstinate and stubborn, and he won't. That was his excuse. So then Krishna went on saying, all right, he won't give the kingdom, give them 5 states, give them 5 cities, give them 5 villages. And Duryodhana is with his arms crossed his chest saying, no, no, there must be war. I cannot live on the same planet with those Pandavas. There must be war. And then cheers from his group. So, as a last resort, Krishna made an arrangement to meet with Dhritarashtra privately. And he urged privately, there was someone that leaked what the private conversation was about because Duryodhana found out. But Krishna advised Dhritarashtra, the entire Kaurava population will be destroyed because of this obstinacy of your son. So my recommendation is put him in prison. And otherwise you'll lose your entire kingdom. He and you will lose your entire kingdom and all the citizens. So Duryodhana found out what Krishna had spoken. So what did Duryodhana do? He went to his 2 buddies, Karna and Dushashana. Do you know what he said? Rah, 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 rah. So they decided the next morning when Krishna came into the assembly hall, we're going to tie him up and toss him in jail. Right? So then Krishna knew, and when they came forward with their ropes, he waited till they did their dirty deed, and he first he smiled, and then he laughed really loudly, and then he showed his universal form right in that public assembly, right before the eyes of Duryodhana and his buddies. And they stepped back. Krishna withdrew his universal form, and he departed. That was the end of the peace treaty or effort. They were diabolical. So the statement being made by Jiva Goswami, making reference to this Mahabharata story, oh Krishna, Duryodhana had lack of faith, despite Krishna showing his universal form. In contrast, Arjuna saw his universal form, and he didn't have, this is Duryodhana's response was he had a magic trick. He showed something by magic, that's all. We don't pay attention to him. That's Duryodhana. So the second, from crookedness to lack of faith. And a second example, another story, from Vishnu Purana, he quotes Prahlad Maharaj as saying, it's not by my own
We'll pause here. So, any comments from any one of you? Any volunteers? Yes, Sarvadana.
Hare Krishna Mataji. In the first story that Maharaj said about King Shatarupa, he made an offense by speaking to his friend who happened to be a dacoit. Now, speaking as it is was an offense because he was supposed to follow Maunabrata. But had he spoken to a friend who was not a dacoit, had it been a lesser offense? That is one question, Mataji. And also I wanted to know that talking to a dacoit friend, it was such a big offense that he had to take so many births in the animal form because he took birth in a king family. These were the questions, and other than that, Mataji, I really liked the story and in Hastinapur when Krishna came as a peacemaker, and that rule that when one should have food, one is when one is hungry, and another when food is offered with love. That part was very nice. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji. That story of Shatadhanu and Saitya is really scary because if a person takes a vow and breaks it, which is very possible in this Kali Yuga. People like me who do not have that much determination, then what happens to us? So we have to take a series of births. But I don't know the answer to your question. If that man was not low class or even high class, would it have been different? I really do not know the answer to your question.
And also, Mataji, did he not know that his friend was a dacoit? I mean, knowingly had he spoken and unknowingly had he spoken? Would there have been a difference in his taking births? That is also another.
No, whether the breaking of the vow itself was enough for him to take the next birth like that, that is the thing. Anyway, we can ask anybody who knows more details. It is from Vishnu Dharma Maharaj was quoting. Anybody else would like to
Hare
answer?
Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. For the similar thing, I also, the similar questions I had, but there is one more point. These rules were for which yoga? I mean, these kind of strict rules and the result or the punishment was for the Satya Yuga or, I mean, for which yuga it was applicable? So that also I have a question, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Again, it was not told by Maharaj, and I'm not conversant with this story. For the first time I heard from this lecture only. Anyone else would like to answer Mataji's question? Yes, Chennakeswa Prabhu.
Mother, this is not for answering the question. I just wanted to express my appreciation for Maharaj. I like the way Maharaj was explaining how we fall down from this bhakti with 5 stages. It was covering 2 stages, Kautilyam and Asraddha. So we will hear more from the next steps, next sessions. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Yes, very instructive. That is the actual instruction that we have to take home. Anyone else would like to offer their answer? Shamkund Prabhu, do you have any more information?
I
about
have
that?
something, but I'd like to hear from you and possibly Nitin Mandrai Prabhu, either of both of you, and then I will speak, Mataji. If you have anything to add, please do so, and Nitin Prabhu also.
Sure, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I do not have answer to these questions, but I just want to highlight the point which I really, liked is the emphasis on the faith. Um, and in Bhagavad Gita also this is mentioned in 9th chapter beginning itself that faith is so important. Before Krishna talked about the most important knowledge. So the faith seems to be one thing which stuck, and Maharaj also mentioned why we do not have faith because of our past karma. So faith was something which was key takeaway from me. And I was just thinking, if the Krishna has showed the universal form uh, to in the assembly, right? And if Duryodhan had faith, maybe Krishna would have spoken Bhagavad Gita there itself. All the messages Krishna wanted to convey, maybe it would have been a very different story, but because of the faith and pride he has, lack of faith and pride he has, things uh, turned against him completely. So somehow we are also like, I am also trying to build that faith. I still do not have that conviction to go all out and see that, so I think that's something takeaway for me. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for adding your points. I was also very fascinated with the 5 stages of falling down from bhakti. And everything starts with that duplicity or Kautilyam. Because we will immediately say, no, I'm not crooked. I'm not that very bad. But then duplicity which is also a mild form of crookedness. And that is presenting ourselves as something that we are not, opposed to the simplicity and straightforwardness. So that is the starting point of our downfall. Yes, we do have this tendency that everybody should think well about us. And we try to be dishonest with ourselves, and yes, sometimes with others too. And that is the root cause of falling down, because all these 5 stages, Maharaj had said that it is sequential. So that Kautilyam, or that duplicity, leads to lack of faith in the Shastra, and then lack of faith in Bhagavan. So, and doing offenses. So in a way, these stages, what I understood from Maharaj is that these are all signs and symptoms of that we have done some offenses in the past, maybe previous birth or maybe this birth. So these are the signs and symptoms of those offenses. It is not exactly that it is in our hands. So it is something like it is beyond us, like Bharat Maharaja falling because of previous offense in previous births. So sometimes the slackening is uh, happening. So if we find these signs and symptoms in us, then we have to take the shelter of your devotee, and because devotees are very, very merciful, and only with their mercy, I think we can get over, not by ourselves. That is what I wanted to say, Prabhu. And you mentioned Yugal Kishore Prabhu, no? I don't find him in the call. Any?
No, Nitin
Raghu,
Murari Prabhu, Mataji.
Oh, yeah.
Raman Prabhu wants to speak.
Okay,
Yes, Raman Prabhu.
you can go ahead.
Raghuraman Prabhu, your hand is raised. You can you
Yes,
say?
yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. So actually, Hare Krishna. So first thing which, of course, the story was very reflective about, what are the things which we unknowingly do, especially talking about people, uh, you know, talking different things which are not, required or appreciated, right? I think that's a good reflection. At least this what I could sense. It's a good reflection about that we have to reflect first on ourselves before, getting to talk about others. Because if somebody like that had to undergo so many lives to get to a human form, then I cannot imagine what we all will be, undergoing. At least I'm reflective about me. I think the second, which really was very something which stood out for me is, uh, Krishna was so open to come and say that, you should give away some part of your. There are different levels of negotiation which happened, right? So first is, let's not get to war. First, let's solve it mutually, and all of it. But the level of and this is it's not very different to us also. If I see Duryodhana and I think we are not very different in a lot of ways, uh, because the amount of ego and the amount of me myself which we have, I think it just overpowers everything else. So cannot imagine that Bhagavan showed the uh, the Vishwarupa, and even after that, he or anybody did not realize that, hey, this is a Bhagavan who's right here, who's telling this is what needs to be done, and still we stick upon our own ways of doing it, and because of reasons which are largely uh, to our vested interest. I think that was a very big reflection for me that I think we have to start trusting more
and start realizing that it need not that he has to come only in the supreme form, but he comes in different forms in our lives. We just need to acknowledge that, and then start taking decisions accordingly. And these are the two things which really was very eye-opening, at least for me today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just to mention, it is not that speaking to that person who happened to be a dacoit was the only thing. It was he was breaking a vow which he had taken for it. In that Kartik Kurata, he was not supposed to speak that day. And near that sacred river, when he was going for bath, he broke his vow which he had taken. That was more. That is what I think created such a bad impact. Yes, Subhuti Rai Prabhu has your hand up. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I just had one question, considering the discussion we were having now, and also a few days back, Sham Kund Prabhu said about this. There is something called Gochara and affects the present life. Someone is behaving in a particular way, like that. So today also we were talking about how previous life karma it also acts. So I wanted to understand, like, to what degree it acts, that the devotional service that we do is also overpowered. Does it really overpower, or is it that is it so strong that it acts on us because we are weak in utilizing our free will properly? Like, I wanted to understand from Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. I can
Sham
say,
Kund Prabhu, would
Raghuram
you
Prabhu,
like?
you have something more to add? Your hand is raised. Would you like to add something more?
No, Prabhu. I didn't get it down. Thank you.
So, Subhuti Rai Prabhu, um, the
Yes,
general
Prabhu.
principle involved in Jyotisha, in astrology, is planetary combinations indicate circumstances that will happen. And it is up to an individual how he or she reacts. And based on their reaction, they create new circumstances that will come either in this life or in subsequent lives. So, does it mean that can we overcome them? Can we not overcome them? It is the easy way to understand is like how somebody starts doing exercise. The first day, if somebody is asked to do some exercise, either a body movement or lifting weights, they can't do much. Somebody, if they're asked to lift weights, they can probably do 1 kg, 2 kgs, and even the instructor would say just do 2 kgs. If you do anything more than that, there will be a sprain in the back or sprain in the hand or something like that. In the same way, uh, the tendencies that we have acquired, the natural it's actually unnatural, but it seems to be so natural. Those tendencies that when we read the scriptures or when we hear lectures and we observe the devotees, we get to know some things are healthy, some things are not healthy. So there are tendencies, there are conceptions, and every time we try to go against the acquired nature, there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of resistance from within, and it takes some time until it becomes natural for us. So it is not that it will be fully overpowering us, but there is a time where we will try and we will fail. And yet we have to continue trying. And hopefully one day it becomes second nature. That's for some of them, but for some it is much more easier. It's very easy to give up certain things for us because we never had those kind of attachments at all. It is just circumstantial. So we have certain circumstantial behaviors, we have certain deep rooted behaviors. Circumstantial behaviors are easy to let go. It's the deep rooted ones that is tough to let go. And this is where there's a problem that arises. We, or most of us being Kali Yuga people, when we let go of something which is circumstantial, and we tend to tell others, hey, it is so easy for me to leave. It's the power of bhakti is so high that I'm easily able to let go of this. You should also try it. The power, it's just that you have to indulge in bhakti and you will be able to let go of it. For example, say drinking coffee. Srila Prabhupada wanted us not to have any intoxicants uh, or stimulants, things like that. So for some people, letting go of drinking coffee is very easy. Oh, I could make progress. I just left coffee. But for that very same person, something else may be very difficult. So, in other words, the toughest things to let go of, or actually to fully depend on the Supreme Lord and His devotees, and to know that, or willingly to work for the Supreme Lord and His devotees, that all the time is the toughest part. And all the rest of the rules and regulations are meant to come to this stage only, that I want to do for the pleasure of Krishna and Krishna's devotees. So it takes time, Prabhu. And related to the question which Sharbari Mataji asked, and which Kumarika Mataji answered,
Thank you,
it is
Prabhu.
the point. The point is not about. It's just about the dacoits being spoken to or others. It's the fundamental point here is when one has made a vow, that vow is meant to bring us closer to God and depend on Him. When he started speaking to anybody else, it meant he did not give, that king did not give due regard for the purificatory process and for the vow that he had given. And other important thing here is not that he just got the birth as a dog, a jackal, a vulture, a crow, a peacock, etc. It's not just that. The important thing is that his wife had come all the time, and like in each of his births, his wife came to tell him that uh, this is what you were in your previous birth. In other words, we have to look at the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, that he ensured somebody is there to make him feel the regret of not following a vow, or to disregard something which is valuable and do something which is less valuable or not important at all. So that's the more important lesson to learn from that whole pastime, that in our own life too, it, it is a given fact that we are going to do mistakes. What is important for us is to keep our eyes open when somebody comes and says, dude, why are you doing this? Um, or maybe somebody may not even say that. Maybe we just observe and then we can reflect and feel that, oh, yeah, I'm doing a mistake here. That's important in our own lives too. So the value of feedback is more important, because it's in one sense, uh, the life in any body is finite. We all have been living for infinite lifetimes. I mean, like several billions and trillions of years we have been living in the past. We can continue to live for another billions and trillions in this material world. And yet, just look at it, in a span of like 15-20 years for this king, he died. In 15 to 20 years, he just got to know the value of what spiritual activities are for. And it went very deep into him. For many of us, it doesn't go so deep. So I see that as an act of mercy. Somebody is purified. In other words, just because of his intention to do that vrata, even though he did it incorrectly, the good thing that happened was the tendencies that he had, which he didn't put it, were purified. So this is where Subhuti Prabhu, it relates to your question here, that um, the gocharas, the planets, like the position of the planets, etc., it gives rise to a personality. Let us not let go of the person. There's no need to uh, kill that personality fully, but we need to just identify those things which are not helpful for us to move in our life. And for that, we need to look at indications, either from others speaking to us explicitly, or it is somewhere implicit. Sometimes people may not say, but we try the same thing again and again and again, and it fails. Then it is an indication for us not to just say, let me think through it, what is happening. Rather, it's an indication to us, let me consult somebody. Because the fact that we have recognized something means for it to come into our consciousness, we need to also add the element of humility. And humility comes when we humble ourselves in front of somebody else. That's it from me. Kumarika
Thank
Mataji,
you,
that's all.
Prabhu. Thank you,
Thank you
Prabhu.
very much.
Very nicely explained. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Anyone else would like to comment upon what we heard today? Okay. Then we'll end the call here.